3 years after my wife died, her best friend called me with words that turned my world upside down. Harold, I found something Margaret left for me. She made me promise to wait until the right moment. I think that moment is now. Don't tell your son anything. Meet me tomorrow at Tim Hortons on Dundas. Come alone. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment from what city you are watching me from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I never thought that at 67 years old, after 43 years of marriage, I would discover that my own son had been slowly stealing my life from me. But there I was, sitting in my living room in Burlington, Ontario, watching Derek and his wife Vanessa go through Margaret's jewelry box as if she had never existed. "Dad, you really should let us help organize all of Mum's things," Vanessa said with that syrupy voice she always used when she wanted something. "It's been 3 years. Holding on to everything isn't healthy for you." Derek nodded beside her, already sorting through earrings and necklaces Margaret had treasured for decades. "Vanessa's right, Dad. Besides, most of this stuff is just collecting dust. Vanessa could actually wear some of these pieces. Mum would have wanted that." I sat in my recliner, the same one Margaret used to tease me about, saying I'd become one with the fabric if I wasn't careful. I watched them handling her belongings with a numbness I had grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. Margaret had died of pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. 6 months of watching the woman I loved disappear piece by piece, while Derek and Vanessa visited more frequently than they had in years. At the time, I thought they were being supportive. Now I understand they were circling. "Dad, are you even listening?" Derek's voice cut through my thoughts. "Sorry, son. What were you saying?" Derek exchanged a look with Vanessa. That look, I had seen it hundreds of times over the past 3 years, but I had always dismissed it as concern. Now it felt different, heavy with meaning I couldn't quite grasp. "I was saying that Vanessa and I think you should consider moving into that retirement community in Oakville, the one we showed you the brochure for. I'm not leaving this house, Derek. Your mother and I built this life together." Vanessa sat on the arm of my chair, placing her hand on my shoulder with a gentleness that made my skin crawl. "Harold, we're worried about you. You've been so forgetful lately. Last week you couldn't remember where you put your car keys. And the week before, you missed your doctor's appointment entirely. Everyone forgets things sometimes," I mumbled, but doubt crept into my voice. Had I really become that forgetful? "Of course they do," Derek said, his tone the same one he'd use with a confused child. "But at your age, Dad, these things can escalate quickly. We just want to make sure you're safe." The conversation was interrupted by my cell phone ringing. The number was unfamiliar, and I almost didn't answer, but something made me reach for it. "Mr. Harold McPherson?" A woman's voice, one I vaguely recognized. "Speaking." "Harold, it's Judith. Judith Chen. Margaret's friend from the hospital auxiliary." My heart tightened. Judith had been Margaret's closest friend for over 20 years. They had volunteered together, had lunch every Tuesday, shared secrets I was never privy to. After the funeral, Judith had disappeared from my life almost completely. "Judith, it's been a long time. I know, and I'm sorry. But Harold, I need to see you. It's about Margaret." Derek was watching me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. I turned away slightly, lowering my voice. "What about Margaret? I can't talk on the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? Tim Hortons on Dundas Street, the one near the Mapleview Mall. 10 in the morning. And Harold, this is important. Don't tell Derek or Vanessa about this call." Margaret was very specific about that. The air left my lungs. Why would Margaret tell you not to? "Tomorrow, Harold. Please. You need to see what she left for me." The line went dead, and I was left holding the phone with trembling hands. Margaret had left something with Judith. She had given specific instructions about keeping it from our son. Why? "Who was that, Dad?" Derek asked, his voice casual but his eyes sharp. "Just the pharmacy. Prescription refill. I can pick that up for you tomorrow. Save you the trip." "No," I said, perhaps too quickly. "I need to get out of the house anyway. Do some shopping." That night, after Derek and Vanessa finally left with a box of Margaret's less valuable jewelry pieces, I sat on the edge of our bed. Her side was still made up the way she liked it, pillow fluffed, her reading glasses still on the nightstand. For the first time since her death, I felt like Margaret was trying to tell me something. The next morning, I woke with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. I dressed in the blue sweater Margaret had given me for our 40th anniversary, the one she said brought out my eyes. Derek called early, as he had every morning for the past year. "How'd you sleep, Dad?" "Fine, son. Vanessa and I were thinking we should take you to look at that Oakville place this weekend, just to see it. No pressure." "I have plans this weekend." There was a pause. "Plans? What kind of plans?" "Grocery shopping, maybe a haircut, the usual." "Dad, you know we can handle all of that for you. You don't need to strain yourself." "Strain myself." As if walking through a Loblaws would send me to the emergency room. "I appreciate the concern, Derek, but I'm quite capable of buying my own groceries." His sigh was audible through the phone. "Fine, but call us if you need anything." I drove to the Tim Hortons with my hands gripping the steering wheel. The Burlington traffic was light, and I arrived 15 minutes early. Judith was already there, sitting in a booth at the back with a large envelope and 2 double-doubles. She had aged since I last saw her. Her black hair was now streaked with gray, and the lines around her eyes had deepened, but her gaze was as sharp as ever. "Harold, thank you for coming." She stood to embrace me, and I could feel her trembling slightly. "Judith, what is this about? What did Margaret leave with you?" She sat down and pushed one of the coffees toward me. Her hands were shaking as she touched the envelope. "Before I show you this, I need you to understand something. Margaret loved you more than anything in this world. Everything she did to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Judith opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of papers, photographs, and what looked like a USB drive. "From your son?" The world tilted. I must have looked like I was about to faint because Judith reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I know this is a shock. Believe me, when Margaret first came to me with her suspicions, I didn't want to believe it either. Derek was always such a good boy." "Suspicions about what?" "Judith, you need to start making sense." She pulled out the first document and placed it in front of me. It was a photocopy of what looked like a legal form. I recognized Margaret's handwriting in the margins, notes and dates scribbled in her precise script. "Do you know what this is, Harold?" I read the heading. "Application for Power of Attorney." My name was on it, but so was Derek's. The document would have given him complete control over my finances and medical decisions. "I never signed this," I said. "No, you didn't. But Derek tried to get your signature 3 times in the last 6 months of Margaret's life. He told her it was just a precaution, that it would make things easier if something happened to you." Margaret pretended to agree but secretly documented every attempt. My mind was reeling. Why wouldn't she tell me? Because she was dying, Harold. She knew she only had months left, and she didn't want to spend that time making you choose between believing her or believing your son. She hoped she was wrong. She hoped Derek was just being overly cautious. Judith pulled out another document. But then she found these. They were bank statements, my bank statements, but there were withdrawals I didn't recognize. $5,000 here, $3,000 there, spread out over 18 months. The total was staggering. "I don't understand. I never made these withdrawals." "No," Judith said quietly. "Derek did. He's had access to your accounts for years. Margaret discovered it when she was organizing finances for after she passed. She was trying to make things easier for you and found that over $50,000 had been siphoned from your retirement savings." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. $50,000? And that's not all. Judith handed me another set of papers. Credit cards. 3 of them, opened in your name, maxed out. The total debt is over $40,000. This is impossible. Derek has a good job. He sells real estate. He makes good money. Judith's expression was grim. "Did he tell you about his gambling problem, Harold?" The coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. "Gambling?" Margaret hired a private investigator in her last months. She wanted to know what was happening to your money. The investigator found that Derek has been going to the Casino Rama nearly every weekend for the past 4 years. He's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. His real estate business has been struggling for years. He and Vanessa are in debt up to their necks. She pulled out photographs. Derek at a blackjack table, Vanessa at an expensive jewelry store trying on a bracelet, a receipt from that same store charged to a credit card in my name. Margaret wanted to confront him, Judith continued, but she was so sick by then. She barely had the energy to get out of bed most days, so she did the only thing she could. She documented everything, put it all together, and gave it to me with strict instructions. What instructions? Judith's eyes filled with tears. She told me to wait, to watch. She said that if Derek was just going through a rough patch, he would get help and things would go back to normal. But if he got worse, if he started trying to control you the way he had tried to control her, then I was to give you this. Control her? Judith pulled out the USB drive. There are recordings on here, Harold. Margaret recorded her conversations with Derek and Vanessa in her final months. She started doing it after she found the financial discrepancies. She wanted proof of what they were planning. Planning? Judith pressed play on her phone, which was connected to the USB drive. Derek's voice filled the space between us. Mum, I really think you should talk to Dad about the power of attorney. It would just make things so much simpler when you're gone. Margaret's voice, weak but determined. I'll think about it, Derek. Don't just think about it. We need to get this done before. Well, you know, Dad's already showing signs of memory problems. He forgot about dinner last week, remember? Your father didn't forget about dinner. You changed the time and didn't tell him. A pause. Then, Vanessa's voice. Margaret, we're just trying to help. Once you're gone, Harold is going to need someone to manage things for him. He's not getting any younger. My husband is perfectly capable of managing his own affairs. Derek again, his voice harder now. For how long, Mum? What happens when he really does start losing it? Do you want strangers making decisions for him? Or do you want family? The recording ended, and I sat in silence, my coffee growing cold. There's more, Judith said. Hours more. But the worst one is this. She played another recording. Derek and Vanessa, clearly not knowing they were being recorded. How long do you think she has? Vanessa asked. Doctor said weeks, maybe a month. And after? After. We get Dad to sign the papers. If he won't sign willingly, we'll have him evaluated. Dr. Morrison owes me a favor. A favor big enough to diagnose your father with dementia? Derek's laugh was cold. He'll diagnose anyone with anything if the price is right. And once Dad's declared incompetent, we can sell the house, access all the accounts, pay off our debts. What about your father? There are some decent facilities in North Bay. Cheap. Out of the way. Nobody will bother him there. I heard Vanessa laugh. North Bay? That's hours away. Exactly. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the Tim Hortons seemed to be closing in on me. My son, the baby I had held in my arms, the boy I had taught to ride a bicycle, the young man I had paid through university, was planning to declare me mentally unfit and ship me off to a remote facility while he sold everything Margaret and I had worked for. There's one more thing, Judith said, her voice barely a whisper. The last recording Margaret made 2 days before she died. She hesitated. Harold, this one is different. It's Margaret speaking directly to you. She pressed play, and suddenly my wife's voice filled my ears. Weak, tired, but unmistakably her. Harold, my love. If you're hearing this, then Judith has done what I asked. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you any of this while I was alive. I was a coward. I didn't want our last months together to be filled with anger and betrayal. I wanted to hold your hand and remember the good times. But I couldn't leave you unprotected. Our son has become someone I don't recognize. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I spoiled him too much when he was young. Maybe we should have seen the signs earlier. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is that you know the truth. Derek and Vanessa are trying to take everything from you. They've already stolen more than you know, and they won't stop until they've put you somewhere you can't interfere with their plans. I've left Judith with all the proof you'll need. Bank records, credit card statements, recordings, photographs, everything. I need you to be strong, Harold. Stronger than I could be. I need you to protect yourself, even if it means letting go of the son we raised. Because the boy we loved isn't there anymore. I don't know where he went, but what's left is dangerous. I love you, Harold. I always have. From that first day in Professor Henderson's economics class when you dropped your textbooks all over my feet. Take care of yourself. Live the rest of your life for you, not for a son who sees you as nothing more than an inheritance waiting to happen. Goodbye, my darling. The recording ended, and I realized tears were streaming down my face. Margaret. Even in death, she was still trying to protect me. What do I do now? I asked Judith, my voice hoarse. That's up to you, Harold. But you should know that the private investigator Margaret hired is still available, and I have the name of a very good lawyer who specializes in elder financial abuse. Elder financial abuse. The words felt like a foreign language. That's what this is, Harold. I know it's hard to hear, but what Derek has been doing, the gaslighting, the financial theft, the attempts to have you declared incompetent, it's all textbook elder abuse. And it's illegal. I sat with that knowledge for a long moment. Then I straightened my spine in a way I hadn't in years. I want to see him, I said. I want to look my son in the eye and give him a chance to explain. Harold, are you sure that's wise? No. But Margaret recorded all of this because she wanted proof. If I'm going to use that proof, I need to know for certain that the son I raised is truly gone. Judith nodded slowly. Then let me come with you. You shouldn't face this alone. 3 days later, I invited Derek and Vanessa over for dinner. I told them I wanted to discuss the Oakville facility, that maybe I was ready to consider their suggestions. Derek sounded almost gleeful on the phone. That's great, Dad. Really mature of you. We'll bring some wine. They arrived at 6 o'clock sharp. Vanessa carried a bottle of wine that I knew cost more than she claimed they could afford. Derek was wearing a new watch I hadn't seen before. We sat in the living room, the same room where Margaret had taken her last breath on the hospital bed we'd set up by the window so she could see her garden. So, Dad, Derek began, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Vanessa and I have been looking at the Oakville place more closely. The suites are really nice. You'd have your own bathroom, a little kitchenette. And there are activities, Vanessa added. Bingo nights, movie screenings. You'd make friends. What about this house? I asked. Derek tried to look casual, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. Well, obviously we'd help you sell it. Market's good right now. You could get maybe $750 for a place like this. And that money would go toward my care? Of course, Derek said. After expenses. Real estate fees, lawyers, moving costs. You know how these things are. I see. I reached for the envelope I had hidden beneath the cushion of my chair. Before we discuss this further, I'd like to show you both something. I pulled out the bank statements first, placed them on the coffee table between us. Can you explain these withdrawals, Derek? His face went pale. What are you talking about? $50,000. Withdrawn from my retirement account over 18 months. I didn't make these withdrawals. Neither did your mother. Vanessa's hand went to Derek's arm. Harold, there must be some mistake. No mistake. I pulled out the credit card statements. 3 credit cards. Opened in my name, $40,000 in debt. Including a charge for a bracelet from Burke's that I believe you're wearing right now, Vanessa. She looked down at her wrist, then quickly covered the bracelet with her other hand. Derek stood up. Dad, I don't know where you're getting this information, but from your mother? He froze. What? Margaret knew Derek. She knew everything. The gambling, the debt, the theft. She documented it all before she died. That's impossible. Mum was too sick to. Your mother was never too sick to protect me. I pulled out the photographs. Derek at the casino. Vanessa at the jewelry store. She hired a private investigator, and she recorded your conversations. I played the first recording. Derek's voice echoed through the room, talking about getting me declared incompetent, about Dr. Morrison who would diagnose anything for the right price, about shipping me off to North Bay. Vanessa started crying. Not the calculated tears I had seen her use before, but real, panicked crying. Harold, you have to understand. We were desperate. Derek's debts, the creditors calling constantly. We didn't know what else to do. So you decided to steal from your own father? To declare him mentally unfit so you could take his house? Derek found his voice. Dad, we weren't trying to hurt you. We were just trying to survive. By putting me in a facility hours away while you sold everything I own, It wouldn't have been that bad. You would have been comfortable. Comfortable. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in years. Your mother and I worked for 50 years to build this life. We sacrificed so you could have everything you needed. And this is how you repay us? Derek's expression shifted. The mask of the concerned son was gone, replaced by something harder, uglier. You want to know the truth, Dad? Fine. You and Mum had more money than you ever used. You lived in this huge house, saving every penny while Vanessa and I struggled to keep up appearances. Do you know what it's like to watch your parents hoard wealth while you're drowning in debt? We never hoarded anything. We would have helped you if you had just asked. Asked? Derek laughed bitterly. And listened to a lecture about responsibility? About living within our means? No thank you. I was done being treated like a child. So you treated me like a bank account instead. You were going to die eventually anyway, Derek said coldly. We were just accelerating the timeline. The words hit me like a physical blow. But unlike before, I didn't crumble. I want you both to leave, I said quietly. And I want you to know that I've already contacted a lawyer. And the police, the fraud charges alone will be significant, but the recordings establish a clear pattern of elder abuse. Vanessa jumped up. Harold, please, we can work this out. We're family. Family doesn't plot to steal from their parents. Family doesn't try to gaslight their father into thinking he's losing his mind. Family doesn't refer to their father's death as accelerating the timeline. Derek stepped toward me. Dad, if you do this, it'll destroy us. The charges, the publicity, my career will be over. You should have thought of that before you decided your gambling debts were more important than your father's dignity. I'm your son. My son died somewhere along the way. I don't know when exactly, but the person standing in front of me is a stranger who sees me as nothing more than an obstacle to his inheritance. Derek's face contorted with rage. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. But then the door to the kitchen opened, and Judith stepped out, followed by a man I didn't recognize. This is Constable Morrison from the Burlington OPP, Judith said calmly. He's been listening to everything. The color drained from Derek's face. You set us up. I gave you a chance to explain, to show me some sign of the son I raised. You showed me who you really are instead. The next few months were difficult but clarifying. Derek and Vanessa were charged with fraud, identity theft, and elder financial abuse. The Crown Attorney was particularly interested in the recordings, which clearly demonstrated their intent to have me declared incompetent using falsified medical assessments. The trial was covered by local news. I hadn't wanted the publicity, but the lawyer explained that cases like mine were important. They showed other seniors that they didn't have to accept abuse from their own children, that there were laws and people who would protect them. Derek received 2 years less a day, to be served in the community with strict conditions. Vanessa got 18 months probation. They were ordered to pay restitution, though I knew I would never see most of that money. The gambling debts had consumed everything they had. I sold the house in Burlington. Judith was right. It was too full of complicated memories. Some wonderful, of course. 43 years of marriage had filled every room with echoes of Margaret's laugh, her humming while she cooked, her quiet breathing as she read beside me in bed. But there were darker memories now, too. Derek and Vanessa, sitting in our living room, plotting, the gradual campaign to make me doubt my own mind. The boxes of Margaret's belongings that Vanessa had packed up, claiming to help. I bought a smaller place in Niagara-on-the-Lake, a townhouse with a view of the lake and a small garden where I could grow tomatoes the way Margaret always wanted to, but never had space for in Burlington. I made new friends. Murray from next door is a retired professor who lost his wife to Alzheimer's 5 years ago. We play chess on Thursday evenings and complain about the Leafs together. There's a widow named Catherine who lives 3 doors down and makes the best butter tarts I've ever tasted. We've had dinner together a few times. Nothing romantic. Just 2 people who understand that loneliness is easier to bear when you have someone to share it with. Judith visits once a month. We sit on my small patio and talk about Margaret. She tells me stories I never knew about their Tuesday lunches, about the mischief they got up to volunteering at the hospital, about the secrets Margaret shared with her but not with me. She loved you more than you'll ever know, Judith told me last week. Everything she did at the end, all the documenting and recording. It wasn't because she was angry at Derek. It was because she couldn't bear the thought of leaving you unprotected. I received a letter from Derek 6 months after his sentencing. It was handwritten, which surprised me. Derek hadn't handwritten anything since elementary school. "Dad," it began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but my therapist says part of my recovery is acknowledging the harm I've caused." He went on for 3 pages about his gambling addiction, about the shame spiral that made him rationalize increasingly terrible behavior, about how Vanessa's spending had combined with his gambling to create a debt that felt impossible to escape. "I'm not making excuses. I know what I did was wrong. I stole from you and Mum. I tried to manipulate you into thinking you were losing your mind. I planned to take everything from you. I told you I was just waiting for you to die." That last sentence was underlined. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I'm not sure I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could do those things. And I'm trying to become someone different. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. If you don't, I understand that too." Derek. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in the drawer of my desk, next to Margaret's final recording. I don't know if I'll ever respond. Part of me wants to believe that the son I raised is still in there somewhere, buried under years of bad decisions and worse rationalizations. But another part of me remembers his voice on those recordings, casual and cold, discussing my future as if I were a problem to be managed, rather than a person to be loved. Margaret's voice comes back to me often. "I need you to be strong, Harold, stronger than I could be. I'm trying, my love. Every day, I'm trying." Last week, I was sitting on my patio watching the sunset over the lake when Catherine knocked on my fence. "Harold, some of us are going to the Shaw Festival on Saturday. There's a production of The Importance of Being Earnest. Would you like to join us?" A year ago, I would have made an excuse. I would have said I was too tired, too old, too fragile. "I'd love to," I said instead. Catherine smiled. "Wonderful. We're meeting at Murray's at 6. Don't be late. You know how he gets." I do know how he gets, and that's the miracle of this new life. I know my neighbors. I know my routines. I know what makes me happy and what doesn't. And I no longer feel guilty for choosing my own happiness over someone else's expectations. That night, I wrote a letter of my own. Not to Derek, to myself. "Dear Harold at 67, forgive yourself for loving so much that it almost cost you everything. Forgive yourself for not seeing the truth until it was almost too late. Forgive yourself for still, sometimes, missing the son you thought you had. But also celebrate your strength. Celebrate that when you finally saw the truth, you had the courage to act on it. Celebrate that you chose your own life over the comfort of pretending everything was fine. Margaret saw this strength in you, even when you couldn't see it yourself. She trusted you to survive this, and you have. The years ahead are yours, not Derek's, not Vanessa's, not anyone else's. Yours alone. With love, Harold." I sealed the letter and put it in the drawer with Derek's letter and Margaret's recording. 3 documents that tell the story of the worst chapter of my life and the beginning of a new one. Tomorrow, I'm going to plant more tomatoes. The first batch is coming along nicely, but Murray says there's still room for another row. Catherine mentioned she makes excellent tomato sauce and offered to teach me her grandmother's recipe if I provide the tomatoes. It's a small thing, really. Tomatoes. But it's mine. This life is mine. And that's something no one can take from me again. Did you like my story? If you listened till the end, drop a number 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got lots of other life stories like this on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.